Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. A massive fire has erupted in Hong Kong complex apartment. So far, the fire has claimed at least 44 lives and has left nearly 300 missing. The Hong Kong police have arrested 3 construction company officials. Two National Guard soldiers were shot and critically wounded near White House in what U.S. is calling a targeted attack. The suspect in the shooting has been identified as Rahmanullah, who is reportedly an Afghan national. Following the D.C. shooting, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that his administration would re-examine all Afghans who entered the United States during Biden's term. Trump also denounces the shooting as a terror attack and an act of evil. Amid the escalating rift between China and Japan, U.S. President Donald Trump urges Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi to avoid further escalation. As per reports, this comes as U.S. aims to keep trade truce with China. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves announces more than $34 billion in tax rises. This is on the top of the £40 billion she raised last year. As a result, a large hit of growth of living standards is expected. 11 people have reportedly lost their lives in a deadly train collision in China's southern province on Yunnan. At least 2 people have been injured in the collision as well. Floods and landslides brought about by torrential rain in Indonesia's North Sumatra province killed at least 28 people, with rescue efforts hampered by what an official described as a total cut-off of roads and communications. A bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is urging the Trump administration to reject Myanmar's upcoming elections, calling them a sham meant to legitimize the China-backed junta amid ongoing violence and repression. Now we start this hour with Hong Kong. Volunteers are working tirelessly to sort and distribute supplies as firefighters continue mopping up after a deadly blaze at Hong Kong's Wang Fuk Court. At least 55 people have been confirmed dead and many remain missing, following the fire which has left buildings smoldering. A day after it erupted, residents have described chaotic evacuations and slow initial containment efforts. Authorities are continuing their investigation. Let's listen into what was said.
好感動嘅，真係香港人嘅話精神咧，一知道一房有難咧就爆翻起嚟。住得好遠嘅都會，佢哋知道可能攞啲嘢過嚟好長，幫唔到啲咩，但係佢哋都會係啦，都會繼續去幫。知道明白啊，香港人係有愛嘅。咁啊，嗰啲火即係立得好快咯。咁但係都係見一條夠幾座，咁我覺得就係太過慢。 睇住佢燒幾個鐘頭都睇住佢燒，咁係攞一個反映出嚟，真係點解消防處唔會話處理呢啲咁突發嘅情況，好遺憾。
The suspect in the shooting of 2 National Guard members near the White House has been identified as Rahmanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan national, according to U.S. media. Lakhanwal, who served in the Afghan army alongside U.S. Special Forces for 10 years, opened fire and critically wounded 2 National Guards. Giving information on the shooting, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that the suspect was also shot and is currently hospitalized. Reports suggest Lakhanwal arrived in the U.S. in September of 2021 under Operation Allies Welcome, a program designed to resettle Afghan nationals who aided U.S. troops. He was granted asylum in April of 2025. There are no reports of known criminal history so far of him. In response, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services have announced a halt to processing immigration requests for Afghan nationals. As authorities continue their investigation, the motive behind the shooting remains unclear, though terrorism is among the potential leads. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has called for a thorough review of Afghan immigrants who have entered the United States during the previous Biden administration. Now for this discussion, we welcome Shruti Das Gupta. She's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Shruti, for joining us again. Good to see you. Shruti, looking at this now, how might this incident at the White House shooting influence the Afghans' images who were even brought to U.S. as allies because they helped U.S. force in Afghanistan? How do you think this will affect their reputation and their image moving forward?
Well, from what I understand is that now every Afghani immigrant is going to have a scanner on them. The security agencies are going to be combing through their personal private documents as well as their public conversations, their social media, all of that, just so to ensure that no radical has slipped in under the guise of being a helpful aid to military during the Taliban situation in Afghanistan. So every Afghani is now going to feel insecure. And the motive behind the killing cannot be understood clearly. It could be just somebody who's lost all sense of right and wrong. It can also be some form of intifada where he's radicalized enough to believe that he does need to kill just about everybody in uniform, and unjustified and unclear as of now. But what we do know is that he did chant Allahu Akbar before he did attack those two people. So there is some form of religious piety attached to his actions, at least in his mind. Whether it turns every ally into a prospective suspect or a prospective attacker is something that we will have to go look very closely at. But this particular shooting has justified Donald Trump's actions of deploying National Guard in the United States on his own American soil to protect basic infrastructure, normal civilian people, because the police seem incapable of doing so, and the amount of radicalism as well as the amount of illegal immigrants is so large that the crime rates are spiking through the roofs, and so is every other possible law and order situation being deteriorated to the lowest level.
Right, and as you rightfully mentioned, that this has given Trump a reason to continue on in his immigration crackdown. In what ways could this U.S. domestic security concern and anti-immigrant narratives, how do you think this also affects broader geopolitical strategies of a Trump administration now, especially now that this has unfolded, this incident?
Well, just a few hours ago, I think before this incident, he was saying that he would welcome, at a conference, he would welcome skilled labor to come work and then teach Americans how to do production related jobs, give them skills, skill up America so that American workers are able to get jobs again. So he's kind of, I think, sitting on the fence when he's realizing that he cannot do without foreign labor. But and his visa policies and his immigration policies are not very pro-production, they're not very pro-capitalism, they're not very pro-America. But if he was looking for a way to back out of them, bow out of them in a respectful way by saying, okay, maybe we'll do skilling up of Americans while we ask non-Americans to come and do jobs inside the nation. But something like this would make him pause. Which nations does he encourage? Whether this will further allow people to manipulate the visa system to enter United States and then continue to perpetrate such crimes or perpetrate religious hatred or fanaticism of any level within the soil, within the borders of America, is something that he will be considering. Beyond that, his policy inside America is going to be installing more National Guards. So there will be more men in uniform patrolling America from Americans who have been given asylum or who have been given nationality just on the basis of the refugee crisis that was happening as part of the open borders policy of Biden administration. So there is going to be more people looking within America, looking at each other with suspicion, looking at a particular community or even a particular nation with suspicion, rather than Americans looking outside to find enemies. So America is now going to be hunting its enemies on its own grounds.
Yes, that will be the change. We will be eyeing that on this channel. Thank you very much, Shruti, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next news as well. Now we stay in South America. Venezuela's aviation authority has said that it has banned multiple airlines accused of terrorism after they suspended routes, heeding warnings from US about the military activity in the region. According to Civil Aviation Authority, the affected airlines were Spain's Iberia, Portugal's TAP, Colombia's Avianca, Chile and Brazil's LATAM, Brazil's GOL and Turkish Airlines, and they will have their operational permits revoked for joining the actions of state terrorism promoted by the US government and unilaterally suspending air commercial operations. United States has warned about the increasing military activities in the Caribbean amid a deployment to target narcotics operations, which the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro denies. He insists that it is intended to overthrow his government instead. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Shruti Dasgupta. She's an international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Shruti, for staying with us. Now, what are we to make of this situation still unfolding between Venezuela and US, and how does this Venezuela's decision to ban multiple international airlines reflect its approach?
Well, under Maduro, we do know that there are problems in Venezuela, or even before him. The regime is completely socialist in nature, which has a history of criminalizing dissent. It has a history of ensuring that the Venezuelan people are one of the poorest people in the world, I believe. And it's basically a very unhappy nation right now. But the answer to Venezuela's socialism problem does not mean American capitalism, which is what the Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria was saying. So there is an ideology problem, whether we understand it that way or not. This particular action by Maduro just proves that the authoritarian regime, his last election has question marks all over it, because the UN itself is suspect of whether he actually won majority or whether the elections were stolen. So it kind of puts a question mark on whether he is looking at the benefit of the nation or not, because he's angry that a particular set of airlines prioritized safety of the people traveling, of the pilots, of the airline itself, and this would basically ensure that there is no loss, there is to life or equipment. But he's unhappy because it inconvenienced Venezuelan travelers, and it kind of complied with the American narrative. It showed that foreign airlines are willing to listen to American warnings more than Venezuelan authorities, and when they refused to restart their operations, they stayed on ground. He has issued, he's called them part of the terrorism under a banner under USA. So there is a larger conversation to be had behind this, where Maduro has issues, but USA's actions against Venezuela reeks of capitalism, opportunism against the Venezuelan crude oil reserves, and it has very less to do with the misery of the people of Venezuela, or even empowering the people of Venezuela. And going through this military manner, it would probably trigger a war. It would probably trigger skirmishes, border skirmishes if nothing else, if naval and air skirmishes if nothing else. And there is political as well as military posturing happening around this particular news that does not bode well for the world.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. With that, I would like to thank Shruti Dasgupta for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now moving on to the U.S., the U.S. Supreme Court has delayed a decision on whether President Donald Trump can remove the country's top copyright official. Shira Perlmutter says in her role as the justices wait to hear two related cases involving Trump's attempts to fire other federal officials later this year. Perlmutter was told earlier this year that she had been dismissed just a day after her office released a report warning that some AI training practices by tech companies may violate copyright law. Her lawyers say she was targeted for those findings. The dispute deepened when Trump fired the Librarian of Congress and installed an ally who moved to validate Perlmutter's removal. A federal appeals court later reinstated her, saying Trump had no authority to oust an official within the legislative branch. The administration is now urging the Supreme Court to overturn that ruling, keeping the constitutional fight in motion. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Koshar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Doctor, for joining us again. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Now, looking at this, how does this dispute over removal of this U.S. Copyright Office head, what do you think this reflects the tensions between executive branch and independent federal agencies? And do you think this president could set for future administration something?
A very significant issue, and it should not be brushed under the carpet as far as the United States state of governance is concerned, because if you are pressurized by the White House on an official whose findings could affect major tech companies and especially the artificial intelligence related business models, and you need to preserve the integrity of these regulatory assessments, because this kind of interference, in case the court is allowing, and I'm glad this judgment has come at this point of time, when President Trump is trying to pressurize other independent institutions. And this, I would take it as a landmark ruling, because it's going to affect many other agencies, because similar kind of court cases are going on in America, where President Trump is trying to pressurize the other agencies, and he's trying to hire and fire people on his whims and fancies. So I think these kind of agencies, the faith has to be affirmed in these companies. You cannot be arbitrarily carrying out these kind of decisions, because in the court you will have to justify why you are firing these kind of independent people. And if you can't justify this sort of a thing, then it becomes difficult for these agencies, and not only these agencies, the other constitutional, institutional agencies are there, where they have the right to carry out a certain amount of independence, and especially when this agency does not form part of the executive branch. This copyright agency does not form a part of the executive branch of President Trump's administration. It is an independent agency. It works independently, and certain decisions they were taking which could affect the artificial intelligence architecture of the United States. So I personally feel that whatever I have actually observed, this judgment is a very far-reaching judgment, and it's going to have implications for President Trump.
Right, and what do you think would be the immediate effect, and what do you think would be the long-term effect of this credibility of regulatory oversight in the U.S. as well?
Yes, I think right now, I think this decision has been welcomed. So the immediate effect is going to be that this is a regulatory continuity has been maintained. A long-term economic policy will be allowed to be, and trust in neutrality. So these are the immediate actual scenarios, though the Congress may also intervene because the Congress also has a role to play here in case certain limits on firing of officials whose duties are purely not executive. The Congress could also intervene in future cases to bring in this kind of a legislation. And, uh, uh, and a larger issue is that we could also take up a position to see that uh, artificial intelligence training does not violate copyright, because copyright is one a major issue, a major problem which we actually face in India also, because there are large scale violations of copyright here also. So there needs to be a licensing framework, especially for artificial intelligence data sets. I would like to recommend that certain creative industries must be protected, copyrights must be ensured, and the safeguards to the breach of these copyrights must be implemented very ruthlessly.
Right. And as you rightfully mentioned, this is not just India-US problem. This is going on everywhere with other now evolving AI apps and many softwares. Do you think this is like a challenge that is going to be not just something that we see in US, but in maybe in India, maybe in Japan, maybe in other countries, because certain companies like ChatGPT and companies that are controlling these AI are even sometimes more powerful than the government.
You're absolutely right. Today we are facing a similar kind of a situation in India also. And if you look at the other regions of the world, I think that is also facing a problem, because in Chat GPT today anybody can write an article. The copyrights of that is violated, because the person who's using Chat GPT also does not know what all violations of copyright he has done it, and he does not give credit to these from where he has taken those images or material in his article, because he does not know from where they have come. So I think this kind of regulatory mechanism every country would need to have, but it's extremely difficult to do it on ground, because Chat GPT is a platform which is internationally available. Uh, the government of the day, supposing if I take the example of the Indian government has no control over this app, and people are freely using these apps to do their research work and write you articles or papers or briefs. So a certain amount of regulatory mechanism needs to be put in place with regard to artificial intelligence, is generative artificial intelligence as well as predictive artificial intelligence, copyright, trade, and competition policy, because certain amount of rules today are inconsistent. You'll
Right.
have to develop consistency in the rules, and only then we can achieve a fair amount of success.
100%. Thank you for shedding light on all the angles on this topic. With that, I would like to thank Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving forward to Peru, a Peruvian court has sentenced former President Martin Vizcarra to 14 years in prison, ruling that he took more than $600,000 in bribes long before he entered the presidency. Judges found that as governor of the Moquegua region between 2011 and 2014, he accepted payments from construction companies in exchange for public works contracts. Let's listen into what the Fernanda Ayasta judge has said.
Falla declarando a Martín Alberto Vizcarra Cornejo, cuyos datos de identificación han sido señalados en la parte introductoria de la presente resolución como autor del delito contra la administración pública, cohecho pasivo propio, hecho 1 y hecho 2, en agravio del Estado. En consecuencia, se impone a Martín Alberto Vizcarra Cornejo 14 años de pena privativa de libertad, la misma que deberá ser cumplida en un establecimiento penitenciario que el INPE designe, la misma que se computará desde la fecha 26 de noviembre del 2000.
However, Vizcarra has denied the allegation throughout the year, long trial and calling the case political persecution. He then rose to power in 2018 after his predecessor resigned, but Congress removed him 2 years later amid separate corruption probes. The ruling adds to Peru's deep political instability. The country has cycled through 6 presidents since 2018, many caught up in graft scandals. Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's joining us as a senior strategic and international affairs expert. Thank you very much for staying with us, Major General Doctor. Now, looking at this, how does this imprisonment of former President Vizcarra reflect the challenges of combating corruption in high-level delegation?
You see, this is, I think, a signal of deterrence and the risk of politicalization as we are seeing in Peru. This is, I think, the 4th president who has been convicted for corruption, and corruption is deep-rooted in this country. And this verdict may be read domestically and internationally as a signal that corruption, even at the highest levels, has consequences. And it's extremely important, even this high-profile cases, because normally we see, if you take example in the judicial system of our own country, we see coal scams, and we see all these kind of scams happening all over the.
There might be some network issue with our guest, Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. So I would like to thank him, and now we move on to our next news. We have a breaking news. A powerful 6.3 magnitude earthquake has shook Indonesia's Sumatra island early today. The quake struck at a shallow depth of 10 kilometers near Aceh province. So far, no casualties or damage have been reported, but authorities continue to assess the situation. The region is already battling severe flooding from cyclone Sinyar, which has caused landslides and heavy rainfall. The disaster has claimed at least 28 lives, with dozens still missing and nearly 2,000 homes submerged. More than 2,800 people have been evacuated to safer areas as rescue operations continue. Officials warn residents to stay alert as aftershocks and worsening weather could pose further risks. Now we move on to Thailand. Thailand is battling some of the worst floods in years as military and medical teams race to evacuate residents and deliver supplies to submerged areas. In Hat Yai, southern Thailand's commercial hub, patients were airlifted from flooded hospitals, including intensive care units, while helicopters delivered oxygen tanks, water, and generators. The floods caused by 3 days of record rainfall have claimed at least 33 lives across 7 provinces and affected more than 2.7 million people in Thailand. Nearly 50,000 people have been evacuated in Thailand and Malaysia, with thousands stranded on rooftops as strong currents hamper rescue efforts. Thailand's military has deployed boats, helicopters, and even the country's only aircraft carrier in relief operations. Officials are calling for more equipment to support ongoing rescue efforts as waters slowly recede. And that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.